Disclaimer: I am not a mechanic, AMP, AMT, AME. I am not a CFI, CFII. I think you get the point. If you have any questions, concerns, or etc., seek the advice of experts. I am a private pilot who owns a plane and is trying to give back to the aviation community by sharing my own experience in aircraft ownership. Please refer to your aircraft's POH, as every aircraft is different. And remember, we're all in this together, so be safe out there.
One of the most difficult things for me to comprehend in my flight training was to figure out what runway to land on. Pretty important, right? So what I did was I scoured the internet as a student to try to figure out the easiest way for me to understand what runway I needed to land on based on the wind. So these are a few ideas that I pulled, and I'll show you the one that I use. But first, you want to make sure that you review the airport documents to figure out the preferred runway on calm winds. Sometimes they have noise abatement regulations in place, so you want to make sure that you're taking off and landing on the correct runway. You want to make sure that in uncontrolled airspace, especially around airports that do not have a tower, you self-announce. That way you can learn information by listening, and then also you can tell other pilots in the area what your intentions are. And that brings up a key point there is make sure that you listen. I know that I was in an airport once, and the winds were howling down, and I knew what runway I was going to pick. However, for some reason, that particular airport, and I found out after I landed why, preferred the particular runway heading as opposed to one that fared for the winds, and that was Beach Airport, and it was because of obstructions and construction. So you definitely want to listen. You want to make sure that you read up on your airport documents, and then you want to self-announce, so you let everybody know what's going on. And then if you're making some mistake, there is a possibility that someone can give you a heads up. So there's three methods in which I can use to figure out what runway I want to take off from and land. And the first one is math. This is my least preferable method, but it's pretty effective, and it's pretty simple math. And basically what you want to do, and excuse me for trying to figure out how to write under this camera, is you have a runway heading 1, and then you have a runway heading 2, right? Direct opposite. And then you have your wind, which is a critical value in this equation, right? Because you always want to land and take off into the wind. So what you do is, I've got basically fictional airport 1 here, and they have runway 15 and runway 33, all right? And at this fictional airport, when you call up the weather, you hear that winds are coming in from 180 at 5 knots. We don't really care about the 5 knots, of course factoring another, but for this demonstration or lesson or whatever you want to call it, we're more interested in where the winds are at currently. So 180 is our wind. So the way you do this is you subtract both from the wind and both runway headings. So we have a runway heading of 15, and we want to subtract by the wind. So 18 minus 5 gives us 3, right? And then runway heading of 33 minus current wind of 18 equals 8. And in this particular scenario, the runway that we want to land on is runway 15. I almost said 3. 15. And the reason for that is because it's the lower number out of the two. Now we want to make sure that this number, whatever we came up to, is less than or equal to 9, or this will not work, this math. Okay? So to give you another example here, you have airport 2, and then you have runway, you got 7, and runway 25, and currently today 7070 at 6 knots. We don't care in this particular scenario about the actual wind speed. We care about where it's coming from. So this one's easy, right? So 7 minus 7 equals 0. 25 minus 7 equals, if I do the math quickly, 8. Which one are you going to land on? 0. Makes sense, right? Okay. One more little point I want to add here is you have airport number 3. Nah. You know what I'm getting at here. And they have 4 runways. They have 04, 22, 09, 09, 27. And they have winds coming in at 220 at 8 knots. 220. Hopefully you can see that. All right, good deal. So what you want to do is do 22 minus 4 equals 18. 22 minus 22, what's that going to give you? 0. And then you've got your second set, 27 minus, what are we at? 22. Notice I'm dropping that last number there in the wind. And then what does that equal? That equals 5. 22 minus 9. That's what happens when I look at the camera. Equals 13. Alright, so you immediately want to go to runway 22, right? Because the wind is fairing that. However, make sure that on this particular runway, they have 2 different, or this particular airports, they have 2 different runway types. What they have is they've got grass and they've got regular pavement, right? Or asphalt, or whatever you want to call it. So what you want to do is you don't want to screw up your plane if you're not current on grass, or you're not you don't want to try to land on grass if you've never landed on grass, or you're just worried about it, or it rained that day. I've had that happen before, where it's rained outside and you don't want to land on grass because that just is never good. So you want to go for your pavement route. After listening, it seems like everybody is agreeing with you, and they are landing on runway 27, because that is 5, and it is less than or equal to 9. So what happens if this number and this number, let's say 25 and 13, and 20 and 18, I just made that up, you're stuck, right? I got a solution for you. Because if I flip this over, let's get one that's in there. I have a little template, and this is option 2, to use pictures. And this is pretty fancy, but it's pretty neat too, because you can print this out. I'll leave the link to the template in the description below. You can get it off the website there. And what you can do is you can fold this up and put it on your kneeboard, so you can use it pretty easily, right? So let's use the same runways that we used before, so 15 and 33, and it is coming in at 180 knots at, we don't care for this particular demonstration, right? So what we do with this is we check out 1515. So as everybody knows, if it's written like that, we have 150, and this makes it pretty easy. You just go over here and make another mark, right? So what we do is we look at the wind 180, and we go around and we figure out where 180 is. Boom. 180. We write a little mark right there. And just like before, we take a look, and which one did we pick? Which one did we pick? Well, which one's closer? You can do this, right? Which runway heading, or runway, same difference, is closer to where the wind is coming in from? And that's pretty easy because we can see it visually, and there we go, right? All right, let's see if this continues to make sense. Hopefully it does. All right, so you've got Airport 2. They have 2 runways. They've got 7, and they've got 2, 5, and they've got, again, this is pretty simple, guys, 070 at 6 knots. And let's figure out where 7 and 2, 5 are at. Now you know there's no 0 here, so it's implied that it is 70, right? Okay, and 2, 5, and we can check our work here and know right off bat that that is 2, 5 there. All right, so there we go, and there we go. And it is coming in. Oh, this is super easy, right? Look at that. Boom. All right, so got a new piece of paper for airport number 3, because if you remember, they have 4 runways, right? So they have 04, 22, 09, 27, and they have winds coming at 220 at a bajillion knots. Don't land. But again, we don't really need that. We just need to know where the wind is coming in from. All right, so let's mark this on the paper here, starting with the first set of runways. And 040 would be 40 on the little compass here. 22 right there. Okay. And 09, so that's right there. That's pretty easy to figure out where the other one is. And if you want to make it fancy, I know up in the air you're kind of trying to finagle this quickly, but you can actually draw the physical lines. I like to make the little tick marks for the runway headings and an arrow for where the wind is coming in from. Okay, so 220, another one. Wow, look at that. 220. Okay, however, if you guys remember, runway 220 and runway 040, if you want to be technical, is grass, all right? We don't want to land in grass. Nobody's landing in grass right now. It just rained, so on and so forth. So which one do you pick? Well, the wind's right here, right? So which one is closer? And right there you can tell that runway heading 270 is the one that you want to follow to land on runway 27. And you're good to go. All right, so let's go to the third method that I actually use in my plane. All right, so this is the third method, and this is using basically your heading indicator or your HI or directional gyro or little spinny thing with the airplane, whatever you want to call it. So this is a great method that I personally enjoy. You can do whatever you want, but it's basically the same thing as the little diagram. It's just in your plane. You don't have to write marks or anything like this. And this is a little bit bigger, right, than a normal one. However, it's blown up for size or whatever. So it's easier to see, right? So I'll give you a couple examples here. Just as before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for 15 on here. And usually I just use my fingers because, right, it's pretty easy. You just do that and your fingers naturally kind of fall in line, and 15 and 33 are my 2 runways here, and then I've got 180 as my wind, right? So all you do is you find 180, and literally I have done this in the plane where I've just put my fingers on here, and you can do it with 1 or 3 fingers or 2 hands, whatever you like, but I prefer one. As soon as you do this, you can kind of size it up, right? Because if you see 180, and I don't recommend flying with with no hands on the yoke or stick. But as soon as you do that and find 180, you know right off the bat that it is definitely closer than 3-3, right? So that's pretty easy, and this can be in wherever direction your plane is pointed to, and you can still figure this out. North doesn't have to be straight up. Let's do another one, right? So you've got, let's just do 090, right? That's east, and then your reciprocal is going to be west there. So you got this going here, and then in my example I used 220, I believe, right? Oh, that's weird. I did not plan that. The 220 is directly under the extension of the nose of the plane there. However, we can see right off the bat there that my runway heading of 270, runway 27, is the one that I'm going to land in, because this is much closer than 090 or runway 09. So that's pretty much it. When I'm in the air, I just usually use my hand if I don't just look at it right off the bat. The more you do this and the more you fly, you can visually see this, and then eventually you won't even need that anymore. Because what you'll do is you'll hear 220, you know you have runways 33 and 15, boom, right off the bat you know your answer. So in the beginning, just do one of these methods or another method if you prefer. But this one was the most helpful for me when I was learning, just putting my hands right on here and then putting my finger where the winds were rolling in from, and then boom, I was able to see exactly where I needed to land. Be safe out there, because we're all in this together, and have a good one.